She was blind. He was in a coma. And somehow, in one stormy night, she ended up pregnant with his child. But here's the part that will make your jaw drop. The unconscious man Amanda Johnson gave herself to? He wasn't just some rich CEO fighting for his life. He was Kang Jae-won, the most feared mafia boss in South Korea. A man whose enemies prayed he would never wake up. He woke up. And the first words out of his mouth? Find the woman who is in my room. I'm marrying her today. Amanda had no idea the father of her unborn child had killed more men than she could count. She had no idea that by carrying his heir, she had just become the most wanted woman in Seoul's criminal underworld. And she definitely had no idea that in exactly 6 hours, she would be standing at an altar, saying I do to a man whose last name made grown men tremble. This is not your average love story. This is chaos. This is obsession. This is what happens when fate decides to play dirty. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and turn on notifications because trust me, you're not ready for what's about to happen. Let's get into it. Amanda had been blind since she was 7 years old. A car accident that killed her parents had stolen her sight, leaving her in a world of perpetual darkness. But darkness, she had learned over the years, was not her enemy. It was simply her reality. She navigated it with grace, with her cane, with her heightened senses, and with an independence that made most people uncomfortable. At 24, she worked as a specialized physical therapist at Seoul's most exclusive private hospital, a position she'd earned through blood, sweat, and a determination that refused to acknowledge limitations. Her patients were the wealthy, the powerful, the elite. But the patient in room 1701 was different. Kang Jae-won had been in a coma for 6 months. A car bomb meant for him had killed his driver and left him suspended between life and death. The hospital's records listed him as the CEO of Kang Enterprises, one of South Korea's largest conglomerates. What the records didn't mention was that Kang Enterprises was merely the legitimate face of the Kang crime family, an organization that controlled 70% of Seoul's underground economy. Amanda had been assigned to his case 3 months ago. Her job was to maintain his muscle tone, to keep his body functional for the day, if it ever came, when he would wake up. She spent 2 hours every day in his room, moving his limbs, massaging his muscles, talking to him even though he never responded. She talked to him about everything. About her childhood in Chicago. About how she learned Korean after falling in love with K-dramas she could only listen to. About her loneliness in a country where she would forever be an outsider. About her dreams, her fears, her hopes. She had no idea he could hear every single word. The night everything changed started with a power outage. Seoul was experiencing its worst thunderstorm in decades, and the hospital's backup generators were struggling to keep up. Amanda had finished her shift and was preparing to leave when the head nurse stopped her. Miss Johnson, we need you in room 1701. The overnight therapist called in sick, and Mr. Kang's vitals are fluctuating. The doctors think physical stimulation might help stabilize him. Amanda hesitated. She had never worked the night shift before. But the desperation in the nurse's voice made her decision for her. Room 1701 was darker than usual. The power outage had knocked out the auxiliary lights, leaving only the essential monitoring equipment glowing in the shadows. Not that it mattered to Amanda. Darkness was darkness, whether she could see it or not. She made her way to the bed by memory, her fingers finding his arm with practiced ease. His skin was warm, warmer than usual. She frowned, pressing her palm to his forehead. He was running a slight fever. Hey, it's me, she whispered, beginning her routine. Amanda. I know, I'm not supposed to be here at night. But apparently, you're causing trouble. Your vitals are all over the place. She worked in silence for a while, her hands moving along his arms, his shoulders, his chest. The storm raged outside, thunder shaking the windows, lightning illuminating a room she couldn't see. You know, she continued, I've been thinking. 6 months is a long time. People are starting to lose hope. But I haven't. I don't know why, but I feel like you're still in there. Like you're just waiting for something. She moved his legs, working the muscles with practiced efficiency. I wonder what you were like before this. Were you kind? Were you funny? Or were you one of those cold, distant CEO types who only cared about money? She laughed softly. Probably the second one, right? All my rich patients are like that. But you feel different. I can't explain it. What Amanda didn't know was that J1 had been slowly surfacing for weeks. The doctors couldn't detect it, his brain activity was still minimal on their scans, but somewhere deep inside, he had been clawing his way back to consciousness. And tonight, fueled by fever and the intimate touch of the woman who had become his anchor to the living world, something inside him snapped. His eyes didn't open, but his body responded. Amanda gasped when she felt his hand close around her wrist. Her heart stopped, then restarted at triple speed. In 6 months, he had never moved, never shown any sign of consciousness. But now his grip was firm, strong, almost desperate. Mr. Kong? Can you hear me? Are you? He pulled her closer. She should have screamed. She should have called for help. But something in the way he held her, not threatening, but pleading, made her hesitate. His other hand found her face, his fingers tracing her features like a blind man memorizing a sculpture. Seo-yun, he murmured, his voice hoarse from months of disuse. Amanda's breath caught. Seo-yun. He must have been calling for someone. A wife? A girlfriend? No, she whispered. I'm Amanda. I'm your therapist. But he wasn't listening. His fever had burned away his inhibitions, his grip on reality. In his mind, he was somewhere else, with someone else. And when he pulled her onto the bed, when his lips found hers in the darkness, Amanda made the most inexplicable decision of her life. She kissed him back. Maybe it was loneliness, years of isolation in a foreign country where no one looked at her twice. Maybe it was the strange intimacy she'd built with this unconscious man over months of one-sided conversations. Maybe it was simply the darkness, which had always been her sanctuary, now becoming something else entirely. Whatever it was, when his hands slid beneath her shirt, she didn't stop him. When he pulled her closer, she melted into him. When he whispered Korean endearments she only half understood, she answered in kind. The storm outside raged and howled, masking the sounds of their passion. When it was over, Amanda lay beside him, her heart pounding, her mind reeling. What had she done? What had she become? She was a professional. She had crossed every line that existed. And the man beside her, he wasn't even conscious. Not really. He was in some fever-induced fugue state, thinking she was someone else entirely. She slipped out of the bed, gathering her clothes with shaking hands. She had to leave. She had to pretend this never happened. She had to. His hand caught hers one last time. Don't go, he whispered. Stay. And even though she knew she shouldn't, even though every rational thought in her head was screaming at her to run, she stayed. She stayed until his breathing steadied, until his fever broke, until the first hints of dawn crept through windows she couldn't see. Then she left, and she never spoke of that night again. 3 weeks later, Amanda threw up for the 4th time that morning and finally admitted what she had been desperately trying to deny. She was pregnant. The hospital clinic confirmed it. 8 weeks along, which matched perfectly with that stormy night. She sat in the examination room, her hands pressed against her still flat stomach, her mind spinning with impossible calculations. She couldn't keep it. She had no family, no support system, barely enough money to support herself. The father was a comatose man who didn't even know her name. There was no scenario in which this ended well. But when the doctor started discussing her options, when the word termination left his lips, something inside Amanda rebelled. This child was hers. This child was innocent. This child was, perhaps, the only family she would ever have. I'm keeping it, she whispered. The next step was obvious. She had to resign. She couldn't continue treating a patient she had been intimate with. She couldn't walk into that room every day knowing what she had done, knowing whose child grew inside her. She typed up her resignation letter that night, her screen reader announcing each word back to her. She would leave Seoul. She would return to America. She would raise this child alone, and no one would ever know the truth. But fate, as it turns out, had other plans. The morning Amanda walked into the hospital to submit her resignation, the entire building was in chaos. Nurses were running through the halls. Doctors were shouting orders. Security guards in expensive suits had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. What's happening? She asked, grabbing a passing orderly's arm. It's Mr. Kong, the orderly breathed. He's awake. After 6 months, he's finally awake. Amanda's blood turned to ice. She should have left. She should have dropped her resignation letter at the front desk and walked out of the building without looking back. But her feet carried her to room 1701, drawn by something she couldn't explain. The room was crowded, doctors, nurses, what looked like an army of lawyers. But the moment Amanda appeared in the doorway, a voice cut through the chaos. Everyone out. It was a voice she recognized. A voice that had whispered against her neck 3 weeks ago, a voice that had called her by another woman's name. But now it was sharp, commanding, radiating an authority that made grown men scramble to obey. The room emptied in seconds, leaving only Amanda standing in the doorway and Kang Jae-won sitting up in his hospital bed, his dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "Come here," he commanded. Amanda's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. She stepped into the room, her cane tapping against the floor, and stopped a few feet from his bed. "How did you know I was there?" she asked. "You were in a coma." "I was aware," he said simply. "More than anyone realized. I heard every word you ever spoke to me. I felt every time you touched me. And I remember that night." Amanda's hand flew to her stomach instinctively. Jaewon's eyes tracked the movement, and something in his expression shifted. "You're pregnant," he said. It wasn't a question. If you're enjoying this story, take a second to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling me what you think will happen next. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. How did you? I can see it in the way you hold yourself. In the way your hand keeps drifting to your stomach. He paused. "It's mine, isn't it?" There was no point in lying. Amanda lifted her chin, meeting his gaze even though she couldn't see it. Yes. She expected anger. Accusations. Demands for proof. What she didn't expect was for Kang Jae-won to throw off his blankets and swing his legs over the side of the bed. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "You just woke up from a 6-month coma. You can't." "I've been awake for 3 weeks," he interrupted. "My consciousness returned fully that night. I've spent every day since then rebuilding my strength in secret, waiting for the right moment." The right moment for what? He stood, and despite months of being bedridden, he barely swayed. This man, Amanda realized with growing unease, was not normal. His recovery was impossible. His control was inhuman. Everything about him screamed danger. "To find you," he said simply. "To claim what's mine." He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides, and suddenly his hands were cupping her face, his forehead pressed against hers. "You spoke to me when I was lost in darkness," he murmured. "You told me about your life, your dreams, your fears. You made me want to wake up. You made me want to live. And then you gave yourself to me, gave me a reason to fight my way back." "You thought I was someone else," Amanda protested. "You called me Seo-yeon. I know. And I'm sorry for that. Seo-yeon was someone from my past. But it wasn't her voice I heard every day. It wasn't her touch that kept me anchored. It was yours. Only yours." "This is insane," Amanda breathed. "You don't even know me." "We spoke. I spoke to you while you were unconscious. That's not a relationship. That's not. Marry me." The words hung in the air like smoke. "What?" "Marry me," he repeated. "Today. Right now." Amanda actually laughed. She couldn't help it. The absurdity of the situation had finally broken something in her brain. "You're crazy. You're actually crazy. I'm blind, I'm black, I'm nobody. You're a CEO. I'm the man who fathered your child. And I'm telling you right now that I will not allow my son or daughter to be born without my name." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "I know this is sudden. I know it doesn't make sense. But I've spent 6 months listening to your soul, Amanda Johnson. I know you better than I've ever known anyone. And I'm not letting you go. You can't just decide that. I have a say in this." "You do. And I'm asking you to say yes." He pulled back slightly. "I know you have doubts. I know you have questions. And I promise I will answer all of them. But right now, in this moment, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Amanda's mind was screaming at her to refuse. Everything about this was wrong. Too fast, too intense, too insane. But beneath the fear and the confusion, something else was stirring. Something that had been building for months without her permission. Hope. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "I want answers. Real answers. About who you are, what you do, why you were in a coma. Everything. Done." And I want to be free to leave if I don't like those answers. He hesitated. Just for a moment, but she felt it. I'll agree to that condition. But I have one of my own. What? Give me 3 months. 3 months to show you who I am. 3 months to make you fall in love with me. After that, if you still want to leave, I won't stop you. 3 months. It wasn't much. But it was something. Fine, Amanda heard herself say. I'll marry you. 3 hours later, Amanda stood in a private room at Seoul City Hall, wearing a designer dress that had materialized out of nowhere and a wedding ring that weighed more than her phone. Beside her, Kang Jae-won held her hand like she was the most precious thing in the world. The ceremony was quick, impersonal, utterly unromantic. But when the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, when Jae-won leaned down to kiss her, Amanda felt the earth shift beneath her feet. She was married. To a stranger. A stranger who had been in a coma until this morning. A stranger whose child was growing inside her. What had she done? The drive to Jae-won's home took 45 minutes, and with every passing second, Amanda's anxiety grew. The car they were in was massive, luxurious, and completely silent. Beside her, Jae-won held her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. You're nervous, he observed. I just married a man I've never had a real conversation with. Of course I'm nervous. Then let's have a conversation. What do you want to know? Everything. She wanted to know everything. But she started with the most pressing question. Who put you in a coma? The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda could feel him tense beside her, feel the careful control he was exerting over his own reactions. A man named Park Sung-ho, Jae-won finally said. He planted a bomb in my car. It killed my driver, a man who had worked for my family for 30 years, and put me in that hospital bed for 6 months. Why? Another pause. Longer this time. Because I'm not just a CEO, Amanda. I'm the head of the Kang family. And the Kang family is not entirely legitimate. Her blood ran cold. What does that mean? It means that for 4 generations, my family has controlled the underground economy of Seoul. Import, export, protection, gambling, all of it runs through us. I've been trying to move us toward legitimate business for years, but there are factions who disagree. Park Sung-ho leads one of those factions. Amanda's hand went to her stomach again. You're a criminal. I'm a businessman who operates outside the law in certain areas, yes. A gangster. A mafia boss. Her voice was rising. You married me and you're a mafia boss? I prefer to think of myself as a businessman with flexible ethics. Oh my God. Amanda pulled her hand away, pressing herself against the car door. Oh my God. What have I done? What have I gotten myself into? Amanda, you should have told me. Before the ceremony, before everything, you should have told me. Would you have said yes? No, obviously not. Then you understand why I didn't tell you. His voice was calm, infuriatingly calm. I knew you would run. And I couldn't let that happen. Not when you're carrying my child. Not when you're the only thing that kept me sane during those 6 months of darkness. That's not your decision to make. You're right. It's not. And I'm sorry. He didn't sound sorry. But I'm also not going to apologize for wanting to protect you. For wanting to protect our child. The moment people find out I have a wife, a pregnant wife, you become a target. The only way I can keep you safe is if you're by my side, in my home, under my protection. Or I could leave. I could go back to America, disappear. Park Sung-ho has eyes everywhere. The moment you step foot outside my protection, he'll find you. And he'll use you to get to me. Jae-won's voice hardened. I've already lost too much to that man. I will not lose you too. The car pulled to a stop, and Amanda heard gates creaking open. They drove for another minute before stopping again. We're here, Jae-won said quietly. Welcome home, Mrs. Kang. The Kang estate was a fortress disguised as a mansion. Amanda couldn't see it, but she could feel it, the weight of the security, the whispers of the guards, the overwhelming presence of wealth and power. Inside, she was introduced to a staff of 20 maids, cooks, drivers, all of whom addressed her as Madam with varying degrees of confusion. A woman named Mrs. Park, no relation to the enemy, Jae-won assured her, was assigned as her personal assistant. Her room was on the top floor, connected to Jae-won's by a shared sitting area. It was larger than her entire apartment, furnished with pieces that cost more than her annual salary. I'll give you time to settle in, Jae-won said, lingering at the door. Dinner is at 7. I hope you'll join me. Do I have a choice? You always have a choice, Amanda. I'm asking you to choose to give me a chance. He paused. 3 months. That was our agreement. Will you honor it? She wanted to say no. She wanted to demand he take her to the airport, put her on a plane, let her disappear into anonymity. But she thought about the child growing inside her, about the danger that now followed her whether she stayed or left, about the strange, impossible connection she felt to this man who was as much a mystery as ever. 7 o'clock, she said. Don't be late. Dinner was awkward, formal, and utterly silent until Amanda couldn't take it anymore. Tell me about Park Sung-ho, she demanded. If I'm going to be a target, I deserve to know why. Jae-won set down his chopsticks. Park Sung-ho was my father's most trusted lieutenant. When my father died 3 years ago, he expected to be named regent until I was ready to take over. Instead, my father's will named me as immediate heir. Park never forgave that. So he tried to kill you. He's been trying to destabilize my leadership since day one. The bomb was his most direct attack yet. He assumed that with me dead or incapacitated, he could make a move for control. And did he? He tried. But I had contingencies in place. My people held the line while I was unconscious. Jae-won's voice was grim. But he's been growing stronger. Recruiting from my enemies, building alliances. When word gets out that I'm awake, that I'm married, things are going to escalate. What kind of things? The kind of things I'll protect you from. That's all you need to know. Amanda slammed her hand on the table. No, that's not all I need to know. If I'm in this, I'm in it all the way. I'm not some delicate flower you need to shield from reality. I've been blind since I was 7 years old. I've survived things you can't imagine. So treat me like a partner, not a prisoner. The silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, Jae-won laughed. You really are remarkable, he said. Most people are terrified to speak to me that way. I can't see your intimidating glare. It's amazing how much courage that gives a person. He laughed again, and this time it sounded genuine. Fine. You want to be a partner? Then you need to understand the full picture. Park isn't just after my position. He's after complete control. And the only way he gets that is if the entire Kong bloodline is eliminated. The entire. Amanda's hand flew to her stomach. The baby. Yes, the baby. Our child is now an heir to the Kong Empire. Which means they're also a target. Jae-won reached across the table, taking her hand. Do you understand now why I couldn't let you go? Why I needed you here, where I can protect both of you? Amanda understood. She hated it, but she understood. So what happens now? Now we prepare. Park will make his move soon, probably within the month. When he does, I'll be ready. And me? What do I do? Jae-won's grip tightened on her hand. You survive. That's all I ask. Whatever happens, whatever you hear about me, whatever you see, you survive. Over the next few weeks, Amanda began to settle into her new reality. It wasn't easy. The mansion was enormous and unfamiliar, the staff were formal and distant, and Jae-won was often gone for hours at a time, doing things she didn't want to think about. But slowly, gradually, things began to shift. Jae-won made an effort. Every morning, he had breakfast with her. Every evening, he returned in time for dinner. He answered her questions, most of them, and started teaching her about his world. He told her about his mother, who had died giving birth to him. About his father, who had been cold and demanding, but who had loved him in his own way. About his younger sister, Jae-min, who lived in Paris and wanted nothing to do with the family business. He told her about his dreams to fully legitimize the Kang Empire, to leave behind the shadows his ancestors had built, to create something his children could be proud of. Is that possible? Amanda asked one night, as they sat together in the garden. Can you really leave that life behind? I don't know, he admitted. But I have to try. For our child. For you. Why for me? He was quiet for a long moment. Then his hand found hers in the darkness. Because I'm falling in love with you, Amanda Johnson. And I want to be someone worthy of that love. Amanda's heart stuttered. She wanted to say something, anything, but before she could, the moment was shattered by the sound of gunfire. Now if you're still with me, drop a comment with your favorite part of the story so far. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves a good drama. Now let's continue. Everything happened at once. Guards were shouting. Alarms were blaring. Jae-won was pulling her to her feet, dragging her back toward the house. "What's happening?" she demanded. Park made his move faster than I expected. "We need to get you to the safe room now." They were halfway to the house when the second wave of gunfire erupted. Amanda felt Jae-won jerk beside her, heard his sharp intake of breath. "You're hit," she gasped. "It's nothing. Keep moving." But his grip on her arm was weakening. His steps were slowing. And when they reached the house, he collapsed against the doorframe. Jae-won. Amanda dropped to her knees beside him, her hands finding his chest, his shoulder. Blood. So much blood. "Get her to safety," Jae-won commanded the guards who were suddenly surrounding them. "Do whatever it takes. Protect her." "No." Amanda grabbed his jacket, refusing to let go. "I'm not leaving you. You have to." His hand found her face, his thumb brushing away tears. She didn't know she was crying. "The baby, Amanda. You have to protect our baby." "I can't, I won't." "Listen to me." His voice was fading, but his words were fierce. "I have survived worse than this. I will come back to you. But you have to go. Now. Please." Hands were pulling her away. Strong hands, gentle hands. She screamed his name, fought against them, but it was useless. The last thing she heard before the safe room door closed was the sound of Jae-won giving orders, his voice weak but still commanding. And then silence. The safe room was cold and dark and utterly isolated. Amanda had no idea how much time passed, hours, maybe days. She paced the small space like a caged animal, her hand on her stomach, her heart in her throat. When the door finally opened, she launched herself toward it, desperate for news. "Mrs. Kong." It was Mrs. Park, her voice carefully neutral. "Your husband is out of surgery. He's asking for you." Amanda nearly collapsed with relief. Jae-won was in the mansion's private medical wing, a facility that rivaled most hospitals. He was pale and weak, bandaged and connected to machines, but his eyes lit up when she walked in. "You're safe," he breathed. "Of course I'm safe. You made sure of it." She made her way to his bedside, her fingers finding his face. "You idiot. You stupid, reckless idiot. You could have died. But I didn't. But you could have. Worth it." His hand found hers, pressing it against his chest. "Protecting you will always be worth it." Amanda wanted to yell at him. She wanted to shake him. Instead, she leaned down and kissed him, really kissed him, for the first time since that night in the hospital. When she pulled back, Jae-won was smiling. "Does this mean you're not planning to leave at the end of 3 months?" Amanda considered the question. She thought about everything she'd learned, everything she'd experienced. The danger, the darkness, the impossible complications. And then she thought about his laugh. His honesty. The way he looked at her like she was the most beautiful thing in the world, even though she would never see it herself. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. "But if you ever get shot again, I'm going to kill you myself." He laughed, then winced as the movement pulled at his stitches. Noted. In the aftermath of the attack, everything changed. Park Sung-ho's assault had been repelled, but barely. A dozen of Jae-won's men had been killed, and the mansion's defenses had been exposed as inadequate. But the attack also revealed something else, a traitor in Jae-won's inner circle. It was Mrs. Park, sweet, helpful Mrs. Park, who had been feeding information to the enemy. She had provided the security codes, the guard rotations, the layout of the estate. She had even tried to keep Amanda isolated in the early days, limiting her interactions with the staff who might have warned her. When Jae-won confronted her, she didn't deny it. "Park Sung-ho promised me 10 million won and safe passage out of the country," she said, her voice flat and emotionless. "What were you offering?" "A salary and long hours." "I made the logical choice." "You tried to kill my wife," Jae-won said quietly. "My pregnant wife." "Collateral damage." "Nothing personal." Jae-won's expression didn't change. But something in his eyes went dark, and Amanda realized she was seeing, for the first time, the man who commanded a criminal empire. The man whose hands had signed death warrants. The man his enemies feared. "Take her to the basement," he ordered. "Make sure she's comfortable. I'll deal with her later." Amanda heard Mrs. Park being dragged away, heard her screaming, begging for mercy. When the room was quiet again, she turned to Jae-won. "What are you going to do to her?" "You don't want to know." "I asked." He was silent for a long moment. She tried to kill you. She tried to kill our child. And she almost succeeded. In my world, there's only one punishment for that. Death. Yes. Amanda waited for the horror to come. The disgust. The moral outrage she knew she should feel. But instead, all she felt was cold, hard satisfaction. Good, she heard herself say. J1 looked at her sharply. You don't mean that. I do. Her hand pressed against her stomach. She threatened our baby. She deserves whatever's coming to her. He studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. You really are perfect for this life, aren't you? I'm perfect for you. That's all that matters. He pulled her close, holding her against his chest despite the pain it must have caused. I love you, Amanda. I love you, and I don't deserve you, and I'm never letting you go. I love you too, she whispered back. Even though you're a criminal and a killer, and the most infuriating man I've ever met. High praise. Shut up and kiss me. He did. And for a moment, despite everything, the danger, the enemies, the uncertain future, everything was perfect. But of course, it couldn't last. 3 weeks after the attack, J1 was well enough to travel. And he had unfinished business. I'm going after Park, he told Amanda over breakfast. It's time to end this. Fear gripped her heart. You just recovered. You can't. I have to. As long as he's alive, you and the baby are in danger. I won't live like that. I won't let you live like that. Then let me come with you. Absolutely not. J1. No. His voice was final. This isn't a negotiation. You're staying here, where it's safe. I'll be back within 3 days. And if you're not? He pulled her into his arms. Then the entire Kong Empire goes to you. Everything I have, everything I am, it's yours. Raise our child. Keep them safe. Tell them their father loved them. Don't talk like that. Tears were streaming down her face. Don't talk like you're not coming back. I'm coming back, he promised. But if the worst happens, I need to know you'll be okay. Promise me, Amanda. Promise me you'll survive. She couldn't speak. She could only nod. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. I love you. More than anything. More than my own life. Come back to me, she whispered. Always. And then he was gone. The next 3 days were the longest of Amanda's life. She barely slept, barely ate. She spent every moment waiting for news, any news, about J1's mission. When the call finally came, she nearly collapsed. It's done, J1's voice said through the phone. Park is dead. His organization is scattered. It's over. You're okay? You're not hurt. A few scratches. Nothing serious. She could hear the exhaustion in his voice, but also the relief. I'm coming home, Amanda. I'm coming home to you. He arrived the next morning, battered and bruised, but very much alive. Amanda met him at the door, throwing herself into his arms with complete disregard for his injuries. Careful, he laughed. I'm still healing. I don't care. You're here. You're alive. That's all that matters. He held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair. It's really over. No more enemies. No more threats. We're free. Free, she repeated. I like the sound of that. They stood there for a long moment, just holding each other. Then J1 pulled back, his hands framing her face. There's something I need to tell you. What? I've made a decision. About the business. About our future. Okay. I'm stepping down. Handing control to my cousin, who's been wanting it for years. We're going to legitimize everything, it'll take time, but we'll do it. He took a deep breath. I want to be a good father, Amanda. A present father. I don't want our child to grow up the way I did, surrounded by violence and fear. I want them to have a normal life. As normal as possible, anyway. Amanda's heart swelled. Are you sure? This empire, it's your legacy. Your family's legacy. My legacy is you. Our child. The life we build together. He kissed her softly. Everything else is just details. 6 months later, on a beautiful spring morning, Amanda gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Hannah, meaning one in Korean, because she was the one who had brought them together. She had her father's dark eyes and her mother's beautiful dark skin. She was, in J1's completely unbiased opinion, the most perfect creature ever created. She's going to be trouble, Amanda said, cradling their daughter in her arms. I can already tell. She's half me and half you. Of course she's going to be trouble. Jae-won leaned down, pressing a kiss to his daughter's forehead, then to his wife's lips. But she's our trouble. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Amanda smiled, leaning into his embrace. She thought about everything that had led to this moment, the darkness, the danger, the impossible odds. She thought about a stormy night in a hospital room, about a voice calling her by another woman's name, about a choice that had seemed insane at the time, but had led her here. To this moment. To this family. To this love. No regrets? Jae-won asked, as if reading her mind. Not a single one. And she meant it. Every word. She was Amanda Kong now, wife of a reformed mafia boss, mother of a beautiful baby girl, queen of an empire that was slowly becoming legitimate. Her world was still dangerous, still unpredictable, still nothing like what she had imagined for herself. But it was hers. And she wouldn't trade it for anything. In the end, she had walked into darkness and found the love of her life. She had been blind to the dangers around her, but she had also been blind to her own strength until he showed her. They had started with secrets and shadows, but they had found their way to truth and light. And they lived not happily ever after, because life isn't a fairy tale, but fully, fiercely, and together. Always together. And that's where our story ends, but the love between Amanda and Jae-won? That's forever. If you love this story, smash that like button and subscribe to Afro-Korean for more incredible love stories. Drop a comment telling me what you want to see next. More mafia romance? More forbidden love? I'm listening. Share this video with someone who needs to see it, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay blessed.